Welcome to Channel X TV. Here at the BigCommerce Day, I'm delighted to be joined by Travis and Andrew, both relatively new to BigCommerce. So, first of all, welcome to both of you. But Travis, who are you and what are you doing at BigCommerce? So, you're in charge.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, I'm Travis Hess. I'm the CEO. I've been here a little less than 10 months. I originally came over as president to run go-to-market globally and moved into the CEO role in early October last year. So thrilled to be here. So it's been a little bit more than Andrew, obviously, but been in e-commerce for 20 years and it's just an amazing opportunity, obviously, all the way around.
Fantastic. And Andrew, I think 2 months, is it?
2 months, yeah, just coming up on 2 months, yeah. I joined as the general manager for Europe, so that's ostensibly responsible for obviously our new customer acquisition and also retaining and growing our existing customers and everything in between.
Amazing. So, first of all, with you both new in the role, I've got to ask, what attracted you both to come to BigCommerce?
I can go first.
You can jump in.
Yeah. Sequentially, I'll go first. I obviously been in the space for 20 years. I've had a lot of respect for the business from afar, having worked with almost every other commerce platform out there. On the services side, I just felt for someone like myself, not nearly represented as much from a market share perspective as I felt like it deserved, and just some dynamics in market and complexity. I felt like BigCommerce foundationally had the best opportunity to go map to where kind of the market's going and dealing with a lot of the complexity that is just driving sort of macroeconomic trends and capabilities and needs and use cases that sort of the perfect storm, right place, right time, and right sort of scenario for me. So it was easy.
And I do want to talk macroeconomics and where the market's going, but Andrew, why BigCommerce?
Yeah, very similar to Travis actually. What struck me was the size of the opportunity here, and as Travis's point, very underrepresented, undervalued in lots of ways in the market, right? So the upside is significant. I think Travis and the team have also proactively made some pretty aggressive changes in the company, and it's a really interesting time to join and be part of that sort of that next chapter of the company's history.
Let's talk macroeconomics at the moment. We're in interesting times. The cost of living crisis has been going on, well, pretty much ever since COVID, when everyone sat at home for a year. Yeah. We've just literally in the last few days heard President Trump has put in tariffs around the world. What are you seeing, and what concerns are retailers and brands telling you that they've got at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately volatility is the new norm. Yeah. I think whether that's intentional or unintentional, it's reality. Arguably, you've got certain segments and categories either heavily reliant on importing from areas that might be tariffed more than others or impacted financially. You've already got thin margin in certain industries. Certainly, that's top of mind for folks. I think back to why I thought this was such an amazing opportunity. We've really excelled at optimizing revenue independent of channel or geography, and I think the technical approach we've tried to take is really embracing this concept of being able to compose and inject best in class based on use case and need, and I would use kind of the current macroeconomic environment and that volatility case in point, the flexibility and nimbleness to be able to go and do what we need to do and map that back and orient it to specific clients and specific markets, I think gives us a unique advantage. I think our commercial model is also unique. We're not revenue share based. I think we've got a lot of nimbleness, optionality, and flexibility in our approach that by definition, I think gives us an advantage given the current volatility and markets.
And Andrew, looking close to home for the UK and Europe, is there anything different that you're seeing in those territories compared to what's going on elsewhere in the world?
Relative to tariffs, you mean? And other things?
There's tariffs, there's we're coming up against a deadline for TikTok in the US again, with maybe the US wanting to turn that off. There's so much going on. But is there anything specifically UK focused that you're seeing, or is it much of the same?
I think to come back to your original question, I think what Travis was touching on, I think it's the uncertainty. I've seen, we recently had a customer advisory board yesterday, and top of mind for all of them in their feedback before we met was around tariffs and the impact. I think for a lot of people, not to say they're not prepared, but I don't think they fully anticipate or understand the impact yet, which makes it more difficult because you can't plan, right? And so you pull back on investments or you delay making investments. I think that's in some ways almost more difficult for some people because you can't move forward with your plans or execution for the business.
So I want to move a bit more to BigCommerce and how you can help people, because you've got so much going on. You've got the normal sort of B2C sites, but you've also got the B2B, you've got multi-storefront, so that you have a different French site, German site, Spanish site. Where should retailers and brands really be thinking for opportunity to grow their business? Is it geographic expansion? Is it opening up B2B as well as B2C? And B2B, you might have kind of distributor types, trade types, there might be different pricing on different groups of B2B. Where can a brand really look at their business and say, actually, this is an opportunity? I mean, we've been talking cross-border, me and you, for 14 years. Is cross-border still the panacea for expansion, or is it other areas?
I'll let Travis jump in a second. But if I go back a half step to your question, I think, the world, with our BigCommerce hat on, I think the interesting part is to give optionality and options where you can be in more channels. As a point that Travis talked about, the proliferation of channels, and I think arguably there are not many platforms that actually allow you to take advantage of that ability to execute on lots of different channels. I think that's part of the focus for us, is to really allow people to sell, whether it's B2B or B2C or marketplace, which is obviously a topic that you and I talked about in the past. I think that's a big part of us, right, is to provide that sort of more coherent capability where you can trade on different or have different go-to-market kind of motions depending on what you want to do.
Yeah, I think the proliferation of channels, I think that the customers become the new channel, right? And I think brands, regardless of industry or size, whether you're a brand manufacturer or a digitally native vertical brand or a retailer or a manufacturer, distributor in a B2B sense, you've got to be able to go at scale where your customers want to engage you with scale, value, and frictionless experiences. Ultimately, I think the self-actualization of these organizations is organizational agility. That's what we're really trying to enable, the ability to test, experiment, lean in, lean out, adapt to current market conditions, obviously optimize profitability and revenue. And I think that framework and that approach we've tried to take with the inclusion of optionality, right? Accepting, embracing the fact more innovation and disruption will come by way of probably third-party ISVs than we could possibly ever develop innately ourselves. How do we embrace that? How do we make that operationally, strategically, and technically feasible has been a large portion of where the efforts have been going for us.
Also, we're talking about one of our companies, Feedonomics, as well, because you touched on B2B and B2C, which is a perfectly logical place to start. But also then on top of that, that ability to put your products and services in multiple channels and drive demand. That performance marketing, we think, is entirely complementary and a natural, add-on to the platform capability that we have.
Yeah, and I really like Feedonomics, and I'm going to say the word that everyone's saying at the moment, AI. Everyone's talking about AI and agentic AI and being able to ask a device for a product and it finds it and place an order and I don't even know what channel it's placed on. Right. That's going to be great in the future. But I think there's so many channels coming up now, like the Pinterest, the Snapchat, the TikToks, the TVs. There's so many new channels which Feedonomics can help with, and it really is about where the client is. Are they doing their wedding board on Pinterest? Are they sending messages to their friends on Snapchat about what outfit to wear? Where does the real opportunity come though? Should retailers start spreading themselves more thinly across more channels, or should they be literally optimizing on a few chosen channels? Where do you see the real value and growth for a brand?
I can take that one to start. I think the conversations you and I have had in the past, I think sort of the spray and pray analogy, I'm not sure I buy that. I think it's being deliberate and intentional about which product you're putting on which channel. There's also the product lifecycle part again. In terms of is it new, is it end of line, is it refurb, is it end of. So I think there are more sophisticated, maybe is the wrong word, but more intentional ways that you can decide which channel, which product you want to sell on which channel. I think in our world, it's about having that data model and that ability to actually be able to put products at scale in multiple channels is the bit that we're really focused on.
Yeah, I think with the proliferation of channels, I think regardless of size, profitability is top of mind as well. Obviously, margins are thin depending on regions, and you want a river, not a lake, right? So as you're selling across these different channels, not only maintaining those experiences, but you've also got inventory and orchestration challenges now too, as you've peanut buttered inventory across all of these. So how do you do that at scale without, you know, creating friction or disappointing customer experiences that may drive costs up in other ways, like call center or returns and exchanges and things like that. So it's really a balance. I mean, honestly, we're trying to give an environment where you're able to nimbly test those channels and see what works. And to the extent you can fail fast, great. Make sure it's fast. But I think we're just trying to enable a lot of those things. There's no right or wrong answer or one size fits all. It really depends market, organization.
Category, a whole bunch of things. Where you are in your maturity as well, right? Because some companies, Travis's point, are just not necessarily set up for that proliferation of channels.
Now, something else that we saw at the BigCommerce Day today is Makeswift, and I've got to say I'm quite excited about it. But for those that weren't in the room this morning, can you tell us a little bit about it? And but basically, it's like, here's the website out of the box, and Makeswift is just drag and drop and make a beautiful site instead of a boilerplate template. But what's the power of Makeswift? What can it actually do for a brand?
Yeah, the thesis there, we bought Makeswift, I think a year ago this past December. It predated me, the acquisition did. We felt it was the world's best visual editor. It was built on very modernized technology in both Next.js and React, to the extent people understand that. And really, the purpose of it was the ability for marketers and business users to create experiences without the need of developers, right? And you can imagine the cost savings there, but also the speed to market there as well, as opposed to filling out tickets or requirements and things like that, and waiting for internal or external development to actually happen. There's also an innate design system as well, so kind of best practices and best in class to, again, not only optimize the way that they're creating experiences, and that could be on owned channels or eventually non-owned channels, but we see it as a massive strategic piece in kind of our strategic puzzle now and in the future. Now it's part of the core platform that we're taking to market. Eventually it will be a standalone SKU and could be sold into and delivered on non-transactional sites. In theory, where we're influencing and optimizing revenue, where transactions may be taking place offline or through a different channel. So we're really excited about where it is today and where it is going forward as part of the suite.
And you kind of mentioned something which might be scary for some here, which is you can do it without developers. But I know you've got a huge ecosystem of partners, and there are so many things that you will still probably want developers for on your site, like building product configurators or bundle products. How are you working today with your partners, and what kind of direction are you looking with them?
Technology partners specifically?
Yeah.
Right. Do you have any perspective on that?
Yeah, I think for us, we're trying to go deeper with a lot of these partners. So back to the composability statement I made a few minutes ago, if you embrace the fact that more disruption and innovation will come by way of third-party ISVs and tech partners, our job is to actually go deeper with those partners. We're leaning into more curated composability or pre-composed capabilities, which means pre-integration with these partners. We're going deeper in cohesion with them, orienting that towards specific markets, specific segments, specific industries, all in the spirit of mitigating risk, accelerating speed to market, and driving down total cost of ownership. So the partner ecosystem here, I would argue, of all the players in the space, is the most enriching in the approach that we're taking, because it's extremely partner-centric. We are not a monolith. We are not trying to be the sun, the star, and the moon to everybody like some of our competitors. And we feel very strongly that this will be even further embraced now and in the future, and it's a massive differentiator for us.
And then moving to the BigCommerce business itself, where are you hoping to take it this year? You've already made some quite a few changes since you took over 9 months ago. But for BigCommerce worldwide and then in EMEA, where are you looking to go in 2025?
I mean, the main, and I'll let you, we can ham and egg this. Sure. I mean, the main goal this year, I've been pretty public about this, is to grow ARR. You know, we've met or exceeded guidance. We exceeded profitability guidance in last quarter, which is great. Taking some costs out of the business, we've invested a portion of that cost back into quota carrying capacity. That is all in the spirit of growing ARR. There's a lot of things being orchestrated kind of behind the scenes, a lot of a transformation, if you will, that we've going through in a public market, which is hard at times, and something that is not for the faint of heart, certainly. But yeah, I feel really good about where the business is going. I think we've brought in a lot of new talent, established commerce talent from market. We've re-architected our entire go-to-market team. We've been able to find amazing, experienced executives and leaders like Andrew, and really built a fantastic framework for us to go now execute against and drive efficacy in market. Which again, this industry tends to be momentum oriented. So once you start kind of pushing through and winning in certain areas, and you start amplifying that, it tends to kind of snowball on itself, at least in my experience over the last 20 years.
No, I see that all the time. And Andrew, for EMEA,
yeah, I think we're going through a classic kind of go-to-market, revalidation since I joined 2 months ago. Just I think validating which countries or geographical markets we should and can win in, if that makes sense. So there's a geographical cut. We're also looking at specific verticals where we think there's a good market opportunity, but also they're very underserved from the ecosystem, from the e-commerce ecosystem perspective. So we're looking at things like car parts and home and garden and building merchants are 3 top of mind. We're also looking at some different adjacent markets. So, and the other thing is, sounds kind of obvious, but also working a lot more with our existing customers. I think there are times in companies' journeys where you become very focused on new customer acquisition, which is very important, but also we are making sure that as balance to serve our existing customers and do more with our existing customers. Those are the things that I'm focused on.
Well, I want to thank you both, and especially for the beautiful venue, the Tottenham Stadium. And Tottenham are, of course, one of your BigCommerce customers.
That's right.
But hopefully we're back next year to find out how it's gone. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Good stuff. Thanks, Chris. Good to see you.
Thanks.